Welcome back. All right, who's up for a career video? Raise your hands. All right, there we go. The number 2 pick in the 1980 draft was Dave Babych. I want to talk about Dave Babych. One of my favorite players and a part of a period of time where I was proud to cheer for the Vancouver Canucks. 80-81, he comes into the league with the Winnipeg Jets, who of course had drafted him. 69 games, 6 goals, 38 assists, 44 points. Not bad for a defenseman. His brother Wayne Babych, a little bit of a shorter career. At some point in time, I could absolutely do a Wayne Babych career video as well. So his second year in Winnipeg, he really arrives. And 79 games played, 19 goals, 49 assists, 68 points. This is a Winnipeg team that in 80-81, it's not a season to write home about. But with Babych on the blue line, with Howard-Chuck up front, suddenly the Jets are better. They make the playoffs that year. In 4 playoff games, he records a goal to go with 2 assists for 3 points. 82-83, in 79 games, 13 goals, 61 assists, which was 6th overall in the NHL that year, and 74 points. So he's really become quite the defenseman. He plays 3 playoff games, no points recorded there. He does appear in the All-Star game. He would end up appearing in the All-Star game the following year as well. The Jets throughout this period, they have some up years and some down years. And that's the nicest way of putting it. The Winnipeg Jets of the 80s did have some seasons the Jets fans will still talk to you about. But the reality is they were mediocre for large stretches too. But Babych was not. In 83-84, he played 66 games, 18 goals, 39 assists, 57 points. And as I stated, appeared in the All-Star game for the second time. This is the last time he went to the All-Star game, though, which is a mild surprise. 84-85, 78 games played, 13 goals, 49 assists, 62 points. In the playoffs, 6 games, 2 goals, 7 assists, 9 points. I thought Babych was good in the playoffs. Again, I'm speaking from Canucks fan perspective on that. 85-86, surprisingly, the Jets trade him. 19 games played, 4 goals, 12 assists, 16 points. He's traded to the Hartford Whalers. This worked out really well that his career is able to be made up with the magnets I've been making lately with the old logos. So, perfect. As soon as I came across his page, I was like, you know what? This is the video I need to do. So he plays 19 games with the Jets prior to the trade. 4 goals, 12 assists, 16 points. Really playing quite well. On November 21st, he's traded for Ray Neufeld. Now, Neufeld was a forward who had scored points for Hartford and could absolutely produce on the wing. And I guess they were thinking, well, we've got Carlisle, so we can trade out Babych. I guess, I'm assuming Carlisle was still there at that point. But at any rate, he goes to Hartford and immediately makes Winnipeg regret the trade. 62 games played with Hartford, 10 goals, 43 assists, 53 points. So he ends up with 69 points in 81 games in total. In the playoffs, 6 games, 1 goal, 3 assists, 4 points. He was actually 6th in Norris voting that year. So definitely getting noticed. It's tough, though, going from Winnipeg to Hartford. You're going from one team that doesn't go very far in the playoffs to another team that doesn't go very far in the playoffs. 86-87, still with Hartford, 66 games, 8 goals, 33 assists for 41 points. In the playoffs, just the 6 games, 1 goal, 1 assist, 2 points. I mean, Hartford, A, has a hard time putting together really good seasons, and B, pretty good teams in the Adams division at that point. 87-88, 71 games played, 14 goals, 36 assists, 50 points. And that would be the last time he'd hit 50 points in his career in a season. In the playoffs, 6 games, 3 goals, 2 assists, 5 points. He's a good producer in the playoffs, just the team isn't very good in front of him. 88-89, 70 games played, 6 goals, 41 assists, 47 points. In the playoffs, 4 games, 1 goal, 5 assists, 6 points. Goes over and represents Canada at the World Championship that year, and he actually won silver medal. So kudos to him for that. 89-90, 72 games, 6 goals, 37 assists, 43 points. So another very good season there. In the playoffs, 7 games, 1 goal, 2 assists, 3 points. Then we get to 90-91. His season's almost completely taken out by a wrist injury that required surgery. Only played 8 games that year and only recorded 6 assists. So we have expansion coming in. San Jose's coming in. But also Minnesota gets a draft. I've talked about it in a previous video, the San Jose-Minnesota expansion draft. Basically, he's taken by Minnesota in the expansion draft in 1991. If you're thinking the Wild didn't come in 91, no, it was the Minnesota North Stars that took him in the expansion draft because San Jose was, it's a long story. But May 30th, he is taken in the expansion draft by Minnesota, which seemed weird because he'd only played 8 games the previous season, but the Wild are thinking, all right, well, if he's healthy. but he doesn't end up playing a game for Minnesota. So I didn't get to use a Minnesota magnet here, and I have North Stars ones too, and they're nice. June 22nd of that same year, he is traded to the Vancouver Canucks in exchange for Tom Kurvers. That was a 3-team deal, I believe, that one there. So he goes to Vancouver, and in Vancouver, the offensive side of his game is diminished. Now, the wrist injury probably took something out of him there. He wouldn't hit double digits in goals again. But he was a really solid veteran presence on that blue line. The 91-92 Canucks, for my money, still the best roster the Canucks ever had. I still believe that. And Babych coming in was a part of that. Absolutely a big part of that. He was an anchor. He was a veteran on that blue line. And he was, I believe, number 2 in scoring on the blue line that year for Vancouver as well. So the offense wasn't gone. Just it wasn't what it had been earlier before the injuries. In 75 games that first year with Vancouver, 5 goals, 24 assists, 29 points. Vancouver won their division that year. That hadn't happened since before I had watched the Canucks. It was an odd year. In the playoffs, 13 games, 2 goals, 6 assists, 8 points. They fell in the second round against Edmonton. One of the most heartbreaking losses I have ever had. 92-93 was close, but he only plays 43 games that year. 3 goals, 16 assists, 19 points, but he's healthy for the playoffs. 12 games, 2 goals, 5 assists, 7 points. So 93-94 rolls around. The Canucks as a team kind of falling off. They were only 1 game above 500 in 93-94. Of course, they went on that run. So that year, 72 games played, 4 goals, 28 assists, 32 points. Pretty good bounce back for him there. And in the playoffs, 24 games, 3 goals, 5 assists, 8 points. And arguably, the most famous goal of his career was in the 5th game of that series against the Rangers. The Canucks were down 3-1, and then suddenly they had life again. They won Game 5, they won Game 6. Game 5 was in New York, too, and that was a game that I was like, well, this is their last game of the year. It's fine. It's okay. And then they won. I didn't know how to feel. It was like pride or something. So that run was fantastic, but 94-95, we have a lockout shortened season. The Canucks fall off a bit too. They fall back to just 500 instead of a game above 500, but it wasn't a very good year for them. 40 games, 3 goals, 11 assists, 14 points. The Canucks do get out of the first round, but they fall in the second round against Chicago. 11 games played, 2 goals, 2 assists, 4 points for Babych in the playoffs. 95-96, 53 games played, 3 goals, 21 assists, 24 points. He did not make an appearance in the playoffs that year for Vancouver. 96-97 has an almost injury-free season anyways, of 78 games, 5 goals, 22 assists, 27 points. 97-98 rolls around. This is where the Canucks are, well, they've fallen into irrelevancy by the time we reach 97-98. The most merciful thing you can do with a Canuck in 97-98 is trade them. Get them out of that mess. Get them out of that tire fire, however you want to describe it. Good thing is 25 years later and things are completely different. 47 games played that year for the Canucks, 9 assists, no goals. They end up trading him. They want to give him a shot at a Stanley Cup. So they trade him to a contender, the Philadelphia Flyers, on March 24th with a 1998 5th-round pick in exchange for a 1998 3rd-round pick. He plays 6 games after the deadline with Philly. They didn't give him the same role as Vancouver had. But he also broke his foot, blocking a slap shot. But he was told by the doctor it was a bruise. So he's misdiagnosed. And so they gave him painkillers and put him out on his broken foot. In the playoffs, he recorded 1 goal in 5 games. And the following season would prove to be his final year. And playing on a broken foot will kind of do that. 33 games played with Philly in 98-99, 2 goals, 4 assists, 6 points. On March the 23rd, he was traded to the LA Kings in exchange for a 2005th. The LA Kings looking for depth on the blue line. He would play 8 games with LA after the deadline and record 2 assists. Altogether, 1,195 games played, 142 goals, 581 assists, 723 points. In the playoffs, 114 games played, 21 goals, 41 assists, 62 points. That's not bad. Now, in 2002, he did sue the Flyers and the doctor who diagnosed him for that misdiagnosis, which he felt took time off of his career, and he was awarded $1.2 million in damages as a result. $1.3 million in damages as a result, which I'm sure didn't really make up for whatever lost years there might have been. The one thing with Babych is, as good as he was as an offensive defenseman, younger and early in his career, when he got older and he had the experience, he was a very good, solid defensive defenseman. So he evolved, his game evolved to make sure that he was still, relevant, useful to his team. And that's the kind of player I like. I've always appreciated a player that later in their career they take on maybe a bit of a reduced role. In this case, an unglamorous role of playing back, and they do it well. And Babych was good at it, and so I'll throw him in the THG Hall of Fame while I'm at it. I've met the man in person, nice guy, and I have to say, one of my favorite Canucks, because when he came in 91, 92, he was part of a team that really just, it finally gave me hope, because I remember I graduated in 91, and I told people when we were graduating, I said, I think Canucks are going to be pretty good next year. The laughter that I got, and I understood it because they had not had a winning season in the entire time I'd watched them. And then 91, 92, I felt a little bit of vindication when they were actually pretty good. And Babych was a big part of that. That was a smart move. Pat Quinn put together a really good team. And Babych was one of my favorite members of that team. And the epic mustache is still a thing. He still has that epic mustache. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. As always, don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.